This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family.
An urgent memo quietly circulated within Buckingham Palace has ignited the fiercest confrontation in months between Queen Camilla and Prince William's camp. It all began when Camilla secretly maneuvered to integrate her son, Tom Parker Bowles, into active royal operations under a brand new official role. However, before the plan could even materialize, it hit a brick wall in the form of Prince William and Princess Anne. In a shocking twist, immediately following the tense standoff, Camilla unexpectedly stood up to publicly applaud William's own proposal, leaving the room in stunned silence. Yet royal insiders believe this was far from a surrender. It was a perfect smokescreen. Just days later, Tom Parker Bowles quietly resurfaced in an even more discreet play. This time, however, it wasn't William who intervened, but Catherine. Without a single public accusation or clash, a single executive decision placed Tom's entire portfolio under strict review, effectively freezing it indefinitely. Has Camilla truly retreated after her initial setback? Or is she positioning herself for an even more high-stakes gambit to protect the Parker Bowles family? Meanwhile, is Catherine simply playing by the royal handbook? Or has she just delivered her coldest counterstrike yet to shut down the Queen's ambitions? Under the dim amber lights of the secluded palace meeting room on a quiet afternoon, the royal atmosphere hung heavy with the suffocating weight of invisible pressures. Sitting at the head of the conference table, Queen Camilla gently adjusted her necklace, her pensive eyes tracing the work reports as they were passed along. As a woman who had weathered decades of storms, tasting both the bitter trials and the harsh prejudices before officially taking her place as consort beside King Charles III, she understood better than anyone the fragility of power without a solid family foundation. Her greatest anxiety at this moment was not for herself, but for Tom Parker Bowles, her son from her first marriage, a food critic who had always stood on the fringes of the royal spotlight. Camilla longed to secure an official status for Tom, a permanent foothold within the royal family's operational system, so that the Parker Bowles family could root themselves deeply into the monarchy's veins, even though they carried no Windsor blood. Sensing that the discussion on expanding the royal support staff had hit a standstill due to a lack of hands, Camilla subtly shifted her posture, her fingers lightly tapping the polished wooden table with a calculated composure. Never once invoking maternal self-interest, the Queen skillfully painted a picture of an individual with broad social influence, someone who could patronize traditional arts and culinary culture without demanding any official stipends or titles from the national budget. Her gaze swept over the members, pausing with meaningful emphasis as she mentioned Tom's devotion and readiness to serve as the perfect saving grace for the current staffing crisis. She believed that her son's tact and neutral reputation would be a seamless piece to ease the immense workload pressing down upon the palace. Yet the faux warm atmosphere Camilla had painstakingly cultivated was instantly frozen by the rigid stance from across the table where Prince William sat with a hardened expression. As the Prince of Wales and the direct heir to the throne, William had been bearing a colossal workload following his brother's departure, making him fiercely sensitive and conservative when it came to protecting the legitimacy of the crown. To William, the crown was a sacred symbol, and positions representing the royal family were absolutely not favors to be casually handed out to bolster outsider influence. He clasped his hands tightly on the table, a clear posture of defense and defiance, and directed a cold, unwavering stare at his stepmother. His tense silence spoke volumes, a steely declaration that he would never allow such a dangerous precedent to be set, especially when it threatened the transparency and dignity of the monarchy he was fighting to protect. Right beside William, the resistance grew even more formidable as Princess Anne squared her shoulders, radiating an innate stern authority. As the king's sister and the very symbol of a tireless work ethic and iron discipline, Anne had always viewed all matters through the lens of duty and age-old traditional principles. Without needing a lengthy explanation, her sharp frown and decisive shake of the head instantly cut off any avenue of retreat for Camilla. For Anne, The boundary between direct bloodline royals, constitutionally recognized spouses, and outsiders was sacred and inviolable. This absolute solidarity between the future heir and the crown's loyal gatekeeper formed an impenetrable fortress, utterly shattering the queen's attempt to thrust her son into the center of power. Feeling the icy draft sweeping through the boardroom, Camilla subtly withdrew her hands, yet not a single trace of anger or embarrassment flickered across her seasoned face. She inclined her head with a gentle, understanding smile, swiftly pivoting the topic as though her previous suggestion had merely been a spontaneous, well-meaning contribution rather than a calculated personal agenda. As she calmly closed Tom's portfolio, Camilla knew her opening gambit had been completely blocked by the formidable alliance of William and Anne. However, in the deepest recesses of this patient woman's mind, retreating now was not a surrender, but merely a tactical withdrawal, a pause to quietly observe and await a subtler, more covert opening for her next move. The deadlock of the previous meeting did not ease the palace's staffing burden. On the contrary, it posed an urgent challenge that forced Prince William to swiftly find a way out on his own. He understood that to completely extinguish Queen Camilla's maneuvers to introduce outsiders into the system, he could not rely solely on passive opposition, but had to present an absolutely persuasive alternative. Standing before the large glass window of his office, looking out at the windy courtyard, William gently turned the wedding band on his finger, a habit whenever he had to make strategic decisions. The concept of an associate royals model gradually took shape in his mind as a move that would satisfy both ends. Instead of seeking assistance from individuals with no blood relation to the crown, William directed his attention toward Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling. Peter, Princess Anne's eldest son, though holding no royal title, had long been accustomed to court protocol and had always maintained a clean, exemplary image in the public eye. By proposing to bring this couple in to support community and charitable activities, William not only resolved the staffing vacancy, but also firmly reinforced the core principle: every position representing the crown must stem from the roots of the direct bloodline. When the next meeting was convened to settle the matter, once and for all, confidence was evident in every decisive gesture of the Prince of Wales. He slowly presented his proposal with an air of poised authority, proactively directing a respectful gaze toward Princess Anne, as a silent nod of request, while simultaneously forging a natural alliance right at the conference table. William's proposal quickly generated a wave of tacit agreement among key members. Gentle, approving nods appeared throughout the room, not only because of the feasibility of the new model, but also because it preserved the purity of the monarchy amidst changing times. Each of William's logical arguments acted like a hammer blowing shut the door of opportunity that Camilla had painstakingly tried to open for her son, driving the plan to bring Tom Parker Bowles into the center of power toward total defeat. As the atmosphere of the meeting room tilted heavily in William's favor and the battle seemed decisively won, an unexpected turn of events occurred that left everyone present astonished. From the head of the table, Queen Camilla slowly stood up. Instead of showing disappointment or quietly enduring defeat, she began to applaud. The deliberate clapping echoed sharply in the silent room, accompanied by a radiant smile and eyes filled with pride directed at her stepson. Camilla took a small step forward, her voice carrying a solemn tone as she declared that the interest and stability of the royal family would always remain the supreme priority, transcending any personal or familial desires. This grand gesture of standing up in support was a masterclass in strategy by Camilla. By publicly praising her rival, she not only cleansed herself of any prior suspicion of self-serving bias, but also crafted an image of selflessness, putting duty above all else in the eyes of the public and other members. It was a perfect concession in the light of day, helping her preserve her reputation and status as consort in the most complete manner. Yet behind that radiant smile and highly theatrical applause lay an incredibly cold calculation. The moment the meeting concluded and the members began to disperse, Camilla walked out into the palace corridor with slow but unfalteringly firm steps. Her gaze cast down upon the red-carpeted stone steps, where the figures of the Windsor clan were fading from view. She knew she had just experienced a major setback, but the spirit of a woman who had weathered 100,000 public relations battles was never to be easily subdued. The applause from earlier was merely a temporary shield to mask a new shift in direction. Camilla pursed her lips slightly, her mind already swiftly departing the administrative conference table to begin mapping out another route, a path that required no official title but would still yield practical power and immense benefits for the Parker Bowles family, starting with the supreme endorsement of the crown. Following the collapse of her initial gambit, Queen Camilla quickly realized that attempting to wedge her way into the direct administrative machinery of the crown under the vigilant eyes of William and Anne was an impossible task. However, the patience of a woman who had stood on the margins of high society for decades had taught her how to seek out more winding, tortuous paths. Her new target was set on the Royal Warrant, a supreme royal seal of approval for businesses that could transform an ordinary brand into an emblem of luxury and national prestige. Camilla understood that if her son Tom Parker Bowles could secure this coveted warrant for his culinary ventures, the Parker Bowles family would naturally gain a colossal financial foundation and social standing without ever having to hold an official office within the palace. She began to quietly assemble the application, leveraging her close connections and the soft power of a queen to clear the path for this endorsement to be approved under the radar. Yet Camilla's subtle pivot did not escape the sharp eyes of the Princess of Wales. Since taking on an increasingly vital role in behind-the-scenes palace decisions, Catherine had always maintained a sharp alertness and keen vision regarding every movement around the throne. When the routine reports containing the list of proposed Royal Warrant recipients arrived at her desk, Catherine's eyes instantly locked onto the name of Tom Parker Bowles. She leaned back slightly in her chair, gently placing her teacup onto the silver tray as her eyes narrowed in contemplation. Catherine quickly peeled back the layers of the issue. This was essentially a calculated loophole exploit by Camilla to weave the Parker Bowles influence into royal assets and reputation under a commercial guise. To grant the warrant easily would severely damage the crown's credibility in the eyes of a public that was always hypersensitive to familial privileges. Faced with this threat, Catherine chose not to mount a direct opposition or ignite a heated argument in family meetings actions that could put King Charles III in an awkward position between his wife and his children. Instead, she opted for a counteroffensive that was immensely elegant yet thoroughly ruthless. During a working session with the Secretariat and the Royal Review Board, Catherine maintained an entirely calm demeanor, a gentle smile ever present on her face. She slowly placed Tom's file on the table and in a soft voice that carried immense weight requested that this specific portfolio be placed under a special auditing process. Catherine emphasized that to safeguard the absolute credibility of the king and the monarchy before the public, any individual with close ties to the royal family must undergo the most rigorous, transparent, and comprehensive vetting standards ever established without exception. This move by Catherine immediately backed Camilla into a corner. Demanding higher transparency was undeniably the correct course of action, and no one could voice an objection without tarnishing their own image in the process. When the notification arrived that her son's portfolio had officially entered the special review track with a barrage of complex verification demands, Camilla, sitting at her dressing table, froze. Her hand tightened around her horn comb until her knuckles turned bone white. Gazing at her reflection in the mirror, she realized that her young daughter-in-law had just constructed an invisible but incredibly solid administrative swamp, ready to drown her every ambition using the very rules of the monarchy. Princess Catherine's decision to place Tom Parker Bowles' portfolio under special auditing immediately activated a massive cold vetting apparatus behind the ancient stone walls of the palace. For the departments overseeing the Royal Warrant, this was no longer a routine review procedure, but a comprehensive examination under a legal microscope. Every page of documentation regarding Tom's culinary business was meticulously turned over by leading financial experts and royal lawyers. They did not stop at examining product quality or surface revenue. They began digging deep into shareholder structures, international financial transactions, sourcing of ingredients, and even the identity of the smallest commercial partner. This rigor was carried out quietly yet thoroughly, creating an invisible pressure that hung over the entire operating system of the Parker Bowles family. In her private study, Queen Camilla spent anxious days, even though on the surface she had to maintain a poised, elegant demeanor before the media cameras. Every morning, as she saw the growing stacks of requests for further explanation piled on her desk, her chest tightened. She gently rubbed her temples with her fingertips to soothe a dull headache. Camilla understood only too well that in the business world, being subjected to a prolonged investigation and having every partnership picked apart was akin to having all one's vulnerabilities exposed to the harsh sunlight. Tom's joint venture partners began showing hesitation, and newly signed projects were delayed indefinitely, simply due to the label of undergoing special royal vetting. As time dragged on, her plan to use the Royal Warrant as a business springboard sank deeper into a severe stalemate, yet Camilla was completely powerless, unable to find any justification to intervene or pressure the review board. That powerlessness tasted even more bitter as Camilla realized the sharp calculations of her daughter-in-law. Throughout the weeks of the vetting process, Catherine did not make a single direct statement, nor did she display any open hostility or opposition toward Tom. At royal events or family tea parties, the Princess of Wales still appeared with her usual elegant exterior, polite gestures and warm smile directed at the Queen. Catherine maintained a perfect distance, standing entirely apart from the matter in name, yet remaining fiercely resolute behind the scenes as she demanded the Secretariat apply every single technical standard to Tom's portfolio without omission. That powerful silence of Catherine's was like an invisible yet secure net perfectly backing every step of the review board. A sense of frustration mixed with awe welled up within the seasoned Queen. She realized she was not confronting an individual, but was being blocked by the very rules and principles of transparency that the royal family used to protect itself from public scrutiny. Catherine had not used personal power to dictate, but had instead skillfully borrowed the crown's own shield of regulations to neutralize her sword of ambition. Camilla bitterly understood that in this Game of Thrones, when an opponent used moral integrity and transparency as their weapons, any resistance or attempt to take a shortcut on her part would only turn into self-incriminating evidence in the eyes of the public and the king. The office of the Royal Warrant Review Board grew chillingly quiet during the mid-year months, filled only with the rustle of turning pages and the cold, steady tapping of keyboards. After weeks of rigorous auditing, Tom Parker Bowles' portfolio had undergone 3 comprehensive rounds of evaluation, yet the results yielded nothing but lengthy reports marked by unanswered questions. Every minor detail within his food supply chains, the anonymous investments from foreign partners, and even Tom's highly influential culinary review columns were laid out on the scale to be dissected for potential media risks. The board continuously issued requests for further clarification, skillfully delaying the final decision through legitimate administrative procedures. The prolonged silence from the review authority hung like a suspended sentence, slowly choking out the last remaining hopes of those behind the venture. At Clarence House, Queen Camilla could no longer maintain her absolute unruffled composure. She stood leaning against the ancient oak windowsill, her eyes staring blankly at the mist-covered courtyard, while her mind spun in breathless calculations. Her fingers adorned with gemstone rings tapped a restless beat against the wood, betraying a hard-to-hide anxiety. The anguish of a mother watching her son being dragged into the spotlight of covert investigations tightened her chest. Unable to sit idly by while time eroded Tom's prospects, Camilla decided to make one final attempt to turn the tide. She proactively arranged private family-centric gatherings, trying to leverage her soft power to influence the vetting process, subtly hinting at the need for a degree of flexibility for the Queen's family to preserve collective dignity. However, all of Camilla's efforts instantly collided with a fortress of alliances more solid and chilling than ever. During a restricted family meeting at Windsor Castle, when the subject of transparency and royal warrants was raised, Prince William, Princess Anne and Princess Catherine displayed a terrifyingly absolute unity. They needed no harsh words. With mere glances of mutual agreement and resolute nods, they forged a united front to defend the crown's principle of impartiality. William made his stance clear, with a decisive lean back in his chair, while Anne coldly leafed through a regulatory document on the monarchy's reputation. Catherine, with her ever-present elegance, gently placed a dossier detailing public sentiment onto the table, silently proving that any special favor granted to the Parker-Bowles family at this juncture could trigger a catastrophic public relations crisis. The solidarity of this powerful trio extinguished any hope of an exception or concession from the king. The final decisive blow landed in the form of a cold administrative document sent from the auditing board to Tom Parker-Bowles's representative office. The notification bearing the proud red seal of the crown clearly stated that the food brand's application for a royal warrant was suspended indefinitely pending further clarification regarding long-term partnership structures. The phrase, "suspended indefinitely," was in truth a clinical death wrapped in elegant diplomatic prose. When the news reached her, via her assistant, Camilla was sitting at her writing desk. The quill in her hand paused mid-air, and a droplet of dark ink fell onto the pristine white paper, bleeding outward, like the very stalemate now enveloping her plan. Camilla slowly set the pen down her knuckles, trembling slightly, before she quickly clenched her hand to regain control. She leaned back in her chair, letting out a weary, bitter sigh. All her intricate calculations, all her attempts to take a winding detour to secure a prestigious pedestal for her son from her first marriage, had completely gone to ruin against the incredibly tight and ruthless machinery of the House of Windsor. She was forced to accept a cruel reality faced with the impenetrable defensive alliance of William, Anne, and Catherine. Her ambition to bring the Parker-Bowles family deep into royal privilege had struck an insurmountable stone wall. Summer brought sweeping gusts of wind across the balconies of Buckingham Palace, where a new chapter in the operational history of the monarchy was prepared to be officially unveiled to the public. After months of debate and behind-the-scenes trials, the Associate Royals model was officially approved to commence operations. The launch ceremony was devoid of blaring brass fanfares or excessive pageantry, yet the confident presence of Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling, alongside Prince William and Princess Anne, sent an incredibly powerful message of stability and continuity of tradition. Observed from afar, this new personnel structure resembled a perfectly oiled machine, operating on the devotion of those carrying the direct bloodline and constitutionally recognized status, completely sealing off every loophole that outsiders had once hoped to slip through. Standing at the center of the ceremony, Queen Camilla wore an elegant navy blue ceremonial dress, her face as flat as a rippleless lake. She understood that millions of public eyes, and especially the camera lenses of the media, were converging on her slightest expressions to catch any hint of fracture or disappointment. Consequently, Camilla chose to resist by immersing herself in the flow of royal authority. She proactively stepped forward, offering Peter and Harriet warm handshakes, accompanied by the benevolent, approving smile of a matriarch. Every graceful inclination of her head and every warm glance she directed toward the crowd exuded the beauty of sacrifice and selflessness. By publicly supporting this decision, Camilla had personally erected a flawless screen for her reputation, turning a bitter backstage defeat into a brilliant moral victory in the light of day. She accepted stepping back, letting the ambitions of the Parker-Bowles family fade temporarily into oblivion. To preserve the status of consort she had bartered her entire life to obtain. Tom Parker-Bowles' failure to secure the royal warrant was also incredibly tactfully announced through a brief newsletter from the auditing board regarding the year's list of approved businesses. There were no lengthy explanations, nor any insinuation of Tom's familial ties. The indefinite suspension of his portfolio was simply treated as the clearest proof of an objective and rigorous working process, where strict standards were applied equally to everyone, including the stepson of the reigning queen. The public quickly received this information with deep respect for the crown, viewing it as a symbol of transparency and fairness in an era where absolute integrity was demanded from those holding privilege. On the other side of the staterooms, Prince William stood beside Princess Catherine, the two exchanging a look of profound understanding without needing a single word. Catherine gently smoothed the lapel of her husband's suit, her fingers lightly brushing the back of his hand in a quiet sharing of their shared familial victory. For William, the solidarity of Anne and the sharpness of Catherine had not only helped him resolve a temporary staffing crisis, more importantly, they had successfully protected the core principles of the monarchy against personal designs. They had proven that the crown could only stand secure when enveloped by strict regulations and absolute transparency. The quiet confrontation closed smoothly under the applause and radiant smiles of the day's festivities, leaving behind a peaceful palace where the boundaries of power had been redrawn more clearly and firmly than ever before. After reading this story, in your opinion, was Princess Catherine's subtle intervention through bureaucratic procedures in Tom's portfolio an objective defense of royal principles? Or was it a cold, covert punishment for the ambitions of the Parker Bowles family? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.